You started your career in 1976. You were a disc jockey at a radio station in Shreveport. And again, that's where the media journey sort of began for you. You did telecasts for LSU. And I'm just always really curious, when you talk to people that have been in media as long as yourself, and because it is a grind. I mean, it's a journey and I know it's different now because people, as we were talking, off air, our good friend Jake Crane of the J-Boy Show and kind of what I'm doing with the Spurs Up Show, you're kind of able to create your own niche and create your own path. You don't have to, and I joke with people, you don't have to go out to Mississippi and cover middle school volleyball for 10 years before you get your shot or whatever, all due respect, whatever. But I would just love to hear again, where did that initial love for sports media come for you, for sports in general? And just what was that overall grind like? Because again, it's one thing I'm sure, you just kind of put your head down, you follow your passion, and you look up one day and you're working for ESPN, you're working for Raycom, for Fox Sports. But what was that journey in media like for you? And just go back to your beginnings, if you will.
Well, it was something that I wanted from the time I can remember. I can remember back to when I was 4 or 5 years old. My father was in the television business, helped put a couple of television stations on the air. Prior to that, he had done radio and newspapers, but he helped put the first 2 television stations on the air in my hometown. And he was a crooner. He had his own band that toured SAC air bases. So he was great in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, where you had to really produce, direct, write commercials and all the things that go with producing your own shows in local TV in the late 50s and early 60s. So extraordinarily talented man. And he introduced me to the public lifestyle of someone that's going to be in that profession, and being comfortable in front of people was something that was never an issue for me because he made it so. He put me out there in front of people as a kid. We were sort of in Shreveport. Our family was a little bit like, the Osmonds. I could sing, I could dance a little bit. My older sister did that as well. She pantomimed too. We were part of the act. And, but at the same time, I was allowed to live, as most kids in Shreveport, Louisiana would, like a normal kid, and play in the front yard, in the backyard, and go across the street to the church lot where we play, baseball games late in the afternoon, or maybe basketball games in somebody's backyard. We did all of that in those days in the 60s. But growing up in that period, the neighborhood period, it was fun. But watching television was a very big deal. Just having a television was like a huge deal in 1963 or 4 when I was 6, 7 years old. And I was just drawn to live sporting events, the guys that were doing the big games. And Kurt Gowdy, who turned out to be one of my mentors, was the guy that I really wanted to be like. He did the American Sportsman. He was the lead guy on NBC's Game of the Week, the Final Four, countless numbers of Super Bowls. As much as I loved my dad and admired my dad and had him as a real mentor on a daily basis, he knew that I wanted to be the guys doing the games. He understood my love of sports, and it was a connection to being a regular kid. There was nothing regular about getting on a bandstand at an airman's club on an air base, singing Me and My Shadow with my father in a tuxedo, and then playing Wipeout on the drums. That was abnormal. I wanted to be more normal in the sense that I was involved in sports. And that's how it all got started. And then by the time I was 14 years old, my dad had an opportunity to get me on the air with him calling high school football games. On September the 10th, 1971, I did my first high school football game with my father. That was 50 years ago, this September the 10th. Now I'm 65. So I was just about to turn 15. I wasn't 15 yet. I was 14 years old, 14 years and 10 months old when I did my first high school football game. And the rest is really history. I did it my sophomore year, my junior year, senior year of high school. I quit playing high school football actually in middle school, junior high, in the 8th grade, because I had the opportunity as a 9th grader to do games on the radio. I wanted to be a sportscaster. Now, I continued to play baseball and basketball, and I was pretty good at baseball. And and I enjoyed playing. I have an understanding of what players go through because I was one once. Wasn't great, but I was pretty good. And pitcher, first baseman in baseball that had occasional power, could go deep, would never get a leg hit, that kind of thing. But that's where the love came from, Chris. And but I did know that in those days, you were going to have to go and pay your dues. And your first job would likely be something other than sports. And being a disc jockey was really cool. Summer of your senior year in high school on K-Rock radio, spinning the hits, that made you a pretty cool guy, your senior year of high school, going into college. And a lot of the guys in college wanted the jobs that I already had. So I was really lucky. The calendar was good to me. I was born into a family of broadcasting. Not many people know that. I mean, my dad wasn't Jack Buck, so I don't get the same kind of reaction from fans that Joe Buck does, or that Kenny Albert would, or Tom Brenneman did when he was working on national TV, because they were the sons of famous fathers. But in my hometown, I was the son of a famous father. And living in my hometown, I'm reminded of it often, and that's a great thing. I mean, it really is. So, but the choices that you have to make and the decisions that you make to get where you want to go were much more a part of the construct of building a resume in our business in my day. You really did have to start at the bottom. Then you had to hope that you could, con someone into allowing you to do a show. My first job in Baton Rouge in 1979, I was spinning records in the afternoon, but I convinced the station owner to allow me to do a sports talk show at night. When the power went down on the AM side, please let me do an hour-long radio show. And the owner was a great guy. And I remember him saying, well, can you sell it, kid? And I was like, sure, I'll sell it. And I got some advertisers, and he allowed me to do it. And that really got me into the LSU community. And I became relevant to the coaches within that community. And by the time 1982 rolled around, and Bob Broadhead, who was he was an athletic director that reminds me really a lot of Mike McGee when he was at South Carolina. Bob Broadhead was at Miami working for Joe Robbie with the Miami Dolphins. And he came in with this vision of having his own network, bringing LSU sports into people's homes when cable was just being born. The boxes were there to do pay-per-view, and there were cable channels available. And he had this novel idea to do something called Tiger Vision. And Tiger Vision in 1981-82 was born, and that is at the height of Dale Brown's run at LSU. Again, the calendar was in my favor, and I'm getting to do their games and get videotape out of my work while Charles Barkley is playing at LSU against, some of the great teams that Dale Brown had. And then I had the tape then. I had the tape to send out for people to notice. And 3 years later, January 5th, 1985, a 29-year-old Tim Brando did his first ESPN game with Dick Vitale, Duke at Virginia. And that got it all started for me. And I've been very fortunate ever since.